The darker side of gender ideology was on full display at the LGBT awards this week as David Tennant, a Scottish actor who's best known for playing Doctor Who, received an award for being the best celebrity ally. For being a fantastic trans ally and standing up for women like me. Let's take a look at what he said.
My brilliant wife Georgia, who is the real engine behind anything we do, she educates me about empathy and understanding, and she has been a huge educator for me. But I suppose if I'm honest, I'm a little depressed by the fact that acknowledging that everyone has the right to be who they want to be and live their life how they want to live it, as long as they're not hurting anyone else, should merit any kind of special award or special mention, because it's common sense, isn't it? It is human decency. We shouldn't live in a world where that is worth remarking on. However, until we wake up and Kemi Badenoch doesn't exist anymore, I don't wish ill of her, I just wish her to shut up. Whilst we do live in this world, I am honoured to receive this. I'm thrilled to be here and to be a part of this night. Pride is very important in our house. It's a family affair. We have skin in the game. So this event tonight thrills me.
He said he wished that Kemi Badenoch, the only black woman in the cabinet, didn't exist and that she'd shut up. And the crowd of left-wing luvvies who'd come together to do coke and pat themselves on the back for being brave and progressive enough to have the only socially acceptable opinions in 2024 cheered. I mean, it's a bit unusual for a bunch of virtue-signalling lefties. David also likes to express his trans allyship via the medium of t-shirts. As we all know, nothing is better for expressing the nuanced and difficult debate around gender ideology than a t-shirt slogan. Here he is with one saying, "You will have to go through me." No offence, David, but my turds weigh more than you. You're not The Rock. At a premiere last year, he wore a t-shirt saying, "Leave trans kids alone, you absolute freaks." I mean, some would say that leaving them alone would mean not medicalising them and giving them puberty blockers and hormones and putting them on a pathway to irreversible surgery. But hey, what do I know? Gender ideology has even popped up in David's TV show. Here he is asking an alien what its pronouns are.
Meep.
Yes, the meep. I promise I can help him get home and then you'll never see me again.
You're assuming he as a pronoun.
True. Yes, sorry, good point. Are you he or she or they?
My chosen pronoun is the definite article.
An excellent piece of television and not at all a piece of propaganda that's been clumsily crowbarred in. Pronouns? It's a time-travelling alien. Its species has undoubtedly moved past the primitive phase of child sacrifice and gender pretending. Tennant also called the women who criticise gender ideology
It's a tiny bunch of little whinging fuckers who are on the wrong side of history, and they'll all go away soon.
little whinging fuckers. I mean, it's technically accurate, but it's not very nice. Why is David such a vociferous advocate for gender ideology? I'll explain in full later, but as he says himself,
we have skin in the game.
As one of his kids is trans, so he needs gender ideology to be correct. Otherwise, he's made a terrible mistake. And what's Kemi done to deserve this? Well, as Equalities Minister, she's spoken out against the gender ideology championed by David Tennant and the rest of the progressive left. These ideologists say that male rapists should be allowed into women's prisons if they suddenly decide that they're trans. They think that biological males should be able to compete in women's sports, even though male athletes have huge advantages. They call lesbians bigots for not wanting to sleep with biological males. They call rape victims transphobes for not wanting biological males in their refuges. And they think that kids who think that they're trans or display non-stereotypically gender traits should be affirmed. So instead of sitting down with them to discuss their feelings and see if there's another option, they could be gay or they could be confused or they could just be going through puberty. It's a crazy mixed up time. They're affirmed instead. They're railroaded onto a pathway to transitioning with puberty blockers, hormones, drugs and surgery. These treatments are controversial as they often have severe side effects including sterility, osteoporosis, and of course if you have your dick chopped off it doesn't grow back. That's the big one for me. Studies have shown that in most cases, going through puberty resolves feelings of gender dysphoria, of being in the wrong body. But the idea of sitting down with kids and suggesting that their feelings are just coming from the confusion and changes of puberty is seen by the left as conversion therapy, stopping them from becoming their authentic trans self. And progressives support the propagation of gender ideology in schools, with groomer clowns being sent in to tell kids that they might be in the wrong body. It's all a bit different from when I was a kid and we were taught that every body is different and nobody's body is bad. I mean, to me, that seemed more sympathetic and inclusive than telling kids their bodies are wrong. But hey, what do I know? And look, I've got nothing against transitioning kids. It's always the kids of lefty parents that want to do it. And if lefties want to remove their DNA from the gene pool by sterilising their offspring and make all future family events incredibly awkward for themselves by encouraging their children into surgical procedures that they might later regret, I'm not going to be a bigot and stop them doing that. But it's spread like a social contagion amongst young people. The number of children referred to the NHS's Tavistock Gender Identity Clinic grew exponentially from 77 in 2009 to 2,590 in 2018. It's all spread by social media, and of course kids love fads. I remember a trend for mullets and double denim went round my school. We all looked ridiculous, like a Slovakian Bon Jovi covers band, and of course the fad passed and we all grew our mullets out and got new trousers. But this fad will be a bit more permanent. It's a bit harder to grow out your tits or your dick if they've been cut off. We don't let kids get tattoos because it's a permanent change to their bodies that they might regret later. Why would we let them do this? And this chart shows how Google searches for anorexia have declined as searches for transgender have surged. Experts suggest that this is because transgenderism is replacing eating disorders as a way for pubescent girls to control and desexualize their changing bodies and control the harmful attention they get from society. Journalist Sam Ashworth-Hayes points out that these two conditions have been treated very differently. Imagine if the NHS had responded to surging anorexia cases by opening diet clinics across the country and putting diet coaches into girls' schools. And look, I'm not suggesting that David Tennant is completely wrong. I know some transgender people who knew they were trans from an early age, and for some people, transitioning is the optimum way for them to deal with feelings of gender dysphoria. But this is radical experimental treatment, and there are plenty of warning signs out there that we should maybe tread carefully before pushing it on to kids. Sam Ashworth-Hayes recounts the story of Richie Herron, a detransitioner, someone who regrets their transition. After years struggling with his mental health and sexuality, Richie Herron found a community online which pushed him towards the idea he might be trans. In his account, he was sped through psychiatric assessments and onto hormone treatment before eventually being referred to surgery. He turned it down, citing doubts. When it was offered again, he turned it down a second time, only to be told that if he did so, he would be discharged. Believing that he would lose his therapist otherwise, he signed up. The surgery removed his penis and testicles, shaping a simulacrum of female genitalia in their place. It also took his sex drive, any genital sensation, his ability to urinate without pain, and the potential to father children of his own. He claims to have regretted it almost immediately and is now suing the NHS. Oh, it's another thing my taxes are going to have to pay for that I didn't even want in the first place. And since Richie's case, we've had an independent review into gender treatment, the Cass Review, which revealed that much of the treatment is experimental and can cause serious harm. We've had the leaks from transgender doctors which reveal that they know that the kids that they're treating don't fully understand the consequences of what they're doing. We've had gender clinic whistleblowers reveal that they knew that they were essentially transitioning kids who would grow up to be gay. At the absolute minimum, David should recognise that maybe we need a bit more evidence that drugging, sterilising and maiming children is really keeping them safe. Kemi hit back at David saying, "I will not shut up. I will not be silenced by men who prioritise applause from Stonewall over the safety of women and girls. A rich, lefty, white male celebrity is so blinded by ideology he can't see the optics of attacking the only black woman in government by calling publicly for my existence to end." Rishi Sunak also waded into the row saying, "If you're calling for women to shut up and wishing they didn't exist, you are the problem," in his whiny, ineffectual voice. According to the LGBT awards, David speaks out for marginalised communities. Marginalised in this case being taken to mean the only community we ever hear from, whose every whim is catered for, whose flag flies from every building, whose demands are elevated above everyone else's, and who have a state-funded award ceremony to push their agenda. But when it comes to actually marginalised communities, such as black women, not that I'm suggesting that there's a homogenous monolithic community of black women who all think and act in unison, because unlike progressive leftists, I see people as individuals rather than decanting them into identitarian categories, David Tennant wants the only black woman in government to shut up. Some people have criticised Kemi for playing the race card when she's supposed to be opposed to identity politics, but she's just using the left's weapons against them. Imagine if a Tory donor said that he didn't want Diane Abbott to exist and wanted her to shut up. Owen Jones and the rest of the blob would be clutching the pearls and calling for public flogging for hate crimes. But now that gender ideology has been torpedoed, in large part thanks to the good work of people like Kemi Badenoch, why is David Tennant clinging on so hard to the wreckage? Well, like every other celebrity, he's got a trans kid. Trans kids are the new status symbol for celebs. Remember a while back, all the Hollywood celebs were getting Vietnamese pot-bellied pigs. It's a little pig that identifies as a chihuahua. Well, this season's must-have is a kid who identifies as the opposite gender. Ali Sheedy, Annette Bening and Warren Beatty, Charlize Theron, Cher, Cynthia Nixon, Gabrielle Union, Heather Dubrow, Jamie Lee Curtis, Marcia Gay Harden, Naomi Watts and Lieb Schreiber, Sigourney Weaver, Sting and Trudy Styler. All these celebrities have trans kids at a statistically implausible rate. Whereas only about half of 1% of the wider population is trans, the rate of gender transitioning in celebrity kids must be about 500%. It's ruined things for African child soldiers. It used to be that a helicopter would land and Madonna gets out and you'd be like, yes, a life of luxury in Hollywood. But now some virtue signalling lefty bundles you onto the helicopter and 6 months later you're in Vogue magazine with your hair in pigtails while your new mum explains how you can't wait to get your balls cut off and turned into a vulva. Megan Fox has 3 kids who are trans. 3 kids! The chances of that happening organically are vanishingly small. I agree with David that trans people deserve to be treated with respect and compassion. I mean, unless they're demanding that they're allowed into a women's prison or taking a place in women's sport from a real woman. I mean, if you're smashing weightlifting records with your penis clearly visible through the lycra, that's a bit too far. But I don't think that transitioning kids at this rate is compassionate. This is a new religion. Just as Muslims tend to have Muslim kids and Amish people tend to have Amish kids, so gender ideologists tend to have trans kids. And Kemi and Rishi weren't the only politicians to get involved. Keir Starmer came out to distance himself from Tennant's comments, saying, I wouldn't have engaged in the way that he did. I think it's right that we have these robust discussions, but we must do it respectfully. This is interesting because we're about to have a hard left Labour government with a huge majority who are beholden to gender ideology. The incoming Labour government has pledged to teach gender ideology to kids in schools, institute self-ID that allows anyone to be legally recognised as whatever gender they want without convincing a doctor, and they're going to introduce a ban on therapy that may dissuade children from transitioning. Starmer wants to hide this. Starmer wants to hide this because he knows it's a weak spot, and even people who've traditionally voted Labour, such as J.K. Rowling, have been coming after him for it. Anyway, before I go, let's have a look at who else won awards. Mark Almond won the award for Best Ruth Maddock from Heidi High lookalike. Rylan received the award for having teeth that identify as American instead of British. Leanne Sanderson received an award for being a lesbian footballer. A women's footballer who's a lesbian. Who'd have thought it? Anyway, thanks for listening. Please share this video with anyone who doesn't know about the cast review and who still thinks that gender ideology is just being kind and protecting trans kids. And if you want to buy me a Bud Light, there's a link below. And if you want to support me making these videos and be part of my Patreon community of cool chads and get exclusive content, then please join my Patreon. There's a link below for that as well. Okay, thanks for listening. I've been Leo Kears. Bye. Bye bye.